Russia's war on Ukraine is the first all-out war of aggression in Europe since 1945. And until recently, U.S. foreign policy has been primarily focused on China and the Indo-Pacific. So how will U.S. foreign and security policy change as a result of this war? Anne-Marie Slaughter is the former director of policy planning at the State Department. She's currently the president and CEO of New America. Anne-Marie, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much.
So I want to start with those high-level visits to Ukraine from U.S. government officials. Most recently, Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, last month, Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State. Are these visits just photo ops, or will they have an impact on the war?
Well, they are aimed at demonstrating to Russia that this is our war too, that we are not going to fight directly on the ground. We, NATO, the United States, will not fight directly on the ground and come into direct conflict with Russian troops, but that it is our war and we're not going to just move on. Because you said going in, this is the first all-out war of aggression in Europe since 1945. That's right. But in 2014, the same thing happened. Russia took Crimea and occupied parts of eastern Ukraine, and the world moved on. What these visits are designed to do is to say to Russia, we're not moving on.
Speaker Pelosi told President Zelensky, quote, "Our commitment is to be there for you until the fight is done." Do you think there is more the U.S. can do to help the Ukrainians?
I think the United States is doing what it can, and indeed 33 billion of additional arms may be more than we need. I do think it is essential to continue supporting Ukraine, above all to prevent Russia from taking over southern Ukraine and the port of Odessa. If Russia can do that, then Russia will control global wheat prices, in addition to playing a large role in global oil prices. The world will suffer, and there will be the message then that Russia can continue to nibble away, say at Moldova next.
So how do you think this war has reshaped the global world order, or is it too early to tell?
So, Mimi, it is too early to tell, very much so. I think President Biden sees this as the world's democracies lining up against the autocracies, and Russia is there next to China and Iran and the other autocracies, and that this really is like the 20th century where, you know, a win for us is a loss for them. I don't think that's right. I actually am I think if you look at the ways in which the world is responding on things like the vote to expel Russia from the UN Human Rights Council, what you see is the BRICS are abstaining or voting against. Russia or China voted against, but Brazil, India, Mexico, Indonesia, Egypt, South Africa, all these countries are basically saying, this is not our priority. We have other issues that we have to address. And our global order is no longer going to be divided along the lines of East versus West.
So how would you rate the Biden administration's diplomatic handling of this conflict?
I think the administration has really done an excellent job, really a superb job in many ways. The one place I will fault President Biden is personalizing this against President Putin. If we are going to get any kind of deal, and by that I mean really a ceasefire, you get the military situation to a place where Russia cannot say it's won, or it can say it's won to its own people, but not to the world. And then you have to have a long series of diplomatic negotiations. By telling Putin that he's a war criminal who is going to be sent to The Hague and otherwise really banished from the world, you give him no incentive to even reach that ceasefire.
Do you think that European countries now see the value of their relationship with the U.S. in different terms now as a result of this war?
I think Europe is going through a lot of reassessment of its own security. But I actually think Europe is still very focused on Donald Trump's professed desire to get rid of NATO. He obviously did not act on it, but he and his supporters, who are still a very powerful force in U.S. politics, as we'll see in the midterms and in 2024, really frightened Europe in ways that mean that Europe is thinking much harder about how to provide for its own security. Germany's increasing defense spending not because the United States asked it to, but because Germany is now saying, you know, if the U.S. isn't there, and we can't count on the U.S. forever, we can on Biden, but that's not the United States, then we need to reconfigure.
Do you fault the administration for making the U.S.-China rivalry really the focal point of its security policy?
I don't agree with making China the focal point of our security policy. I again think that the biggest threats we face are global. The things that I worry about for my children and for this country and for the world are whether we're going to have a livable planet, whether we are going to be able to prevent and address future pandemics, because they are coming, whether we're going to be safe in the digital world, which is where more and more of us live. Those are all issues where we actually need to cooperate with other nations. On climate change, if we're not cooperating with China, we will simply not achieve the goals we need to. So rather than thinking of the world in terms of autocracies versus democracies or two great superpowers, China and the United States, I'd like us to be thinking about how do we forge the global coalitions to keep us all safe and prosperous.
All right. Well, Anne-Marie, nice talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Mimi, thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.